Hello, welcome everybody to the Smart Connector podcast. My name's Jane Baylor. It's great to see you here. Today, I have a great guest for you, Jill Lublin. Welcome, Jill.
Thank you, Jane. Great to be here with you.
So, San Francisco based Jill is a 4 times best-selling author, international speaker, podcaster, and publicity strategist who helps entrepreneurs raise their profile and get more visible to their ideal audiences. And she teaches virtual publicity boot camps, and she also runs a kindness circle. And we're going to be talking about what that is a little bit later on. So great to have you with us, Jill. So let's get straight into it and just talk about why is it important to be visible today online?
Yeah, well, first of all, if you're not visible, people have no idea how to do business with you. And, the reality of visibility and publicity is that it raises your profile so that you can be seen, be heard, and get paid. That's always good, right? And it
Yeah.
attracts prospects and clients. And really, I think of it as a way to give your gift and multiply it because you're one to many as opposed to, just one-on-one. Publicity does that for you and elevates your authority. You become the trusted authority.
Well, that's right. Okay, so I think that there's a lot of people out there who are trying very, very hard to become the trusted authority, but they're not really managing. And I'm wondering why that is, Jill. Can you shed some light on why is it that many people are putting in a lot of effort, but actually their efforts are getting ignored?
Well, one thing is I would beg the question, how is your message? And one of the things I think is really a key is go to the message first. What is it that you're putting out in the world? It's not just about like beat the chest publicity, as I like to call it. It really, you have to solve problems for others, and that's a key. And I would say, let's start there. Look at your message in your media. Is it the kind that's really capturing the attention of producers and hosts? Is it something that will really help people and give value and benefit? Look at those two keywords. And is it something that their readers, their viewers, they're interested, that would be interested in? I have to tell you, when I wrote Guerrilla Publicity, I was privileged to talk to many, many different kinds of media. And one of the things one of Entrepreneur Magazine said, and of course, many of you would want definitely to be an Entrepreneur Magazine, she said, please tell people it's what my readers care about, right? And I think that that's really a key point for people to hear.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because when we go out there with just a thought of I want this and I want that, then people are going to care less about us, aren't they? Because they want to know that this is about what I want, and if you can't cater to that, then essentially it just becomes an ego-driven form of, well, fanning your own flames, as it were, right?
Yeah, yes, yes. And let me just say, I mean, publicity is promotion. Yes, part of it might be getting a little comfortable with it. And listen, I had a real estate professional. She wouldn't even get on camera. And by the way, she's beautiful, she's articulate, she's smart, but there was something about that camera. And here's what I found: as you are comfortable more with your message, this is what I've seen in helping thousands of people with their media messages, is as you get comfortable in that, what happens is your confidence goes up, and then
Mm.
your clients feel that, your prospects feel that, and people really get that about you, that you love what you do and you deliver it and you can speak it well. And I think being concise and precise is really important. So I find that most people fail to take that first step, and that's maybe why they're not getting anything. Like baby steps, my friends, that's what works.
Yes, and I love your point about clarity, Jill, because if you're not clear about what you do or who you serve, or you're just waffling a little bit, then people can't really take you seriously, can they? I mean, clarity is just so critical, isn't it?
It really is, and it is a key to success. And I'm excited, for all of you to take that first step, whatever that is for you, and next step for some of you, to really creating a bigger publicity message. And I'm just going to say, Jane, this might help some people to know that really publicity is happening all the time. It really is. I mean, you're on Zoom, you're networking, you're out for coffee, you're on an airplane. Guess what you're doing? You're being visible. You're doing publicity. People will say, "What do you do?" And
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah, and a lot of it is about momentum, isn't it? It's also about it's also about taking action and getting out there and building those relationships and those partnerships, isn't it? And an example of this is what we're doing here, because I've been a guest on your podcast, you've been a guest on mine. It is just many reciprocal conversations and activities lead to success, don't they?
Yes, they do. And it is continuous momentum. I love how you put that.
Yeah. So Jill, you talked about content actually being distributed in things like podcasts and magazines, because essentially you're a publicity person, right? So that's how you help your clients get more visible. Can you give us some tips and hints on what editors or podcast hosts, obviously I'm a podcast host as well, but what people are actually looking for?
Well, one thing I would tell you is go to iTunes and plug in one word, whether it's coaching or health or, whatever it is that your specialty might be, and see what pops up. Like, who's talking about that? That's a really great place to start with your own topics, like one word. And I think that makes such a difference. So another great tip is Google Alerts. I love Google Alerts, and I want you to put, again, your one tip, not your tip, your topic. So for instance, when the Profit of Kindness came out, I put in the word kindness. And I found out that November 13th is World Kindness Day, number one. Number two, I started doing kindness circles monthly. I also can see on my wonderful phone every day who's talking about kindness. And then I can go specifically to the reporters. I know what medium is talking about it, what magazines, newspapers, articles, TV. And also in Google Alerts, I want you to put your name in Google Alerts. So for instance, when you're interviewed, you will see it pop up on Google Alerts. And I have to tell you, this happened to me when there was let me say, a problem in Dallas, Texas, and a CEO of a major ad agency got fired over a racist comment. And they had big clients and well-recognized names like Home Depot and Diet Dr. Pepper. And he got fired. And I got called as the author of Guerrilla Publicity, and they said, "Hey, what's your opinion about this?" Well, I don't live in Dallas, Texas, but because of the wonder of what we're doing here, like in this time of technology, they could interview me on Zoom, and then they put it all together and showed it on the nightly news on ABC. That was fabulous. The next day, I got a Google Alerts, Jill Lublin, ABC TV, Dallas, Texas. And then I can use it and leverage it, which is super exciting. So I definitely
Yeah.
all of you to go on Google Alerts and make sure that is part of what you do to create more visibility, because it does make a difference.
Top tip there. Thank you so much, Jill, for sharing that. And congratulations on getting on national news as well, which is fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's talk about your kindness circle. I think this is a really interesting concept, because obviously this isn't really just business, is it? This is about your values. And I think that's what's really interesting about it, because A, it's a differentiator, but B, it also means that you actually stand for something that other people also stand for, right? Because kindness is one of those things that some people will say, well, why does kindness doesn't matter? Business is business. Kindness is something that you do inside your family. And other people will have a completely different approach to that and say, no, kindness is an attitudinal thing. It's how you go out and face the world. And so I'd love to hear more about why did you come up with this idea of a kindness circle? What is a kindness circle, and how has it helped you in particular?
Oh, thank you. Well, let me just say, kindness kind of fell in my lap. I mean, I've always been a kind person. That's always been one of my core values. And I was driving my 82-year-old friend to her appointments and helping her in her aging journey. She's unfortunately passed. And she looked at me one day and she said, you know, you are very kind. And wouldn't it be nice if we had a new currency, the currency of kindness? And I went, oh, you know how when somebody says something to you and it's like ding, ding, ding. And I went to my publisher and I said, what do you think? And they loved the idea. Let me tell you, Profit of Kindness came out in 9 months, which is very fast for a book from a major publisher. And in fact, I had to kind of race to keep up with all the deadlines. And what it told me was how important in the market this conversation was. And then because of the kindness book, which by the way, I never exactly planned on writing, and it just literally kind of fell in my lap. I started doing research into companies who market and, you know, have as part of their brand kindness, like Honda, the car company. Do you know Honda was doing kindness commercials? Like this huge, let's see, they are a health, Dignity Health, they're called. Do you know in the city of San Francisco, and they're a big health company, they have buses with the Human Kindness Campaign. And what I found out in writing The Profit of Kindness is that kind companies have happier clients, customers, they make more profit, their employees are happier. And I just thought, well, isn't this interesting, right? How it was consistent. And as a publicity expert, I'm looking at how does kindness help companies get more publicity? And you know what was fascinating in my discoveries is that kind companies get more publicity, period, exclamation point, because they stand for something. So it's, you know, and what I've seen is it does, as part of who you are, you know, as a solopreneur, doesn't matter, as a small company, as a large company, kindness does matter. And, you know, sometimes things happen, right? Things need to get redone, or something's going on with someone, they missed their appointment, whatever it is, right? I have return on kindness principles. One of them is flexibility. And I will tell you, in today's world, oh boy, you better be flexible. And it's also kind.
Do you know, I love that. And it's such an interesting concept that kindness and flexibility are connected because, of course, a lack of flexibility is also connected to self-centeredness and impatience and wanting everything on your own terms. So I get that, but I've never really thought about that before. I love it.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And it makes me think, you know, I also think the reason why we gel, Jill, is because I'm a kind person and kindness matters a lot to me.
Yes.
Because if you are a cruel person, people don't like you, but also it just goes against the laws of nature, doesn't it?
Yes. And listen, I think in today's world, listen, we got so much going on out in the world that is not kind. And so can we, as individuals, as business owners, as CEOs, as whoever you are in the world, like imagine this, that each person practices a conscious act of kindness every single day. Okay, that's the assignment, my friends, if you choose to accept it. Practice a conscious act of kindness every single day, and then imagine the world and what it would be like. And at least in your own world, right? What a difference it would make.
Yeah. And also kindness, I was just thinking about it, obviously, because we're talking about communications, and you can communicate in a kind way. If
Yes.
you're saying no to somebody, you can say no in a kind way, or you can say no in a kind of mean way. And I think this is particularly relevant to social media, where basically everybody's connected to everybody else. And people can be quite rude and unkind, can't they?
Oh yes. And you know, again, it's really about each step at a time and
Mm.
practicing, right? And by the way, this doesn't mean you have no boundaries or that people roll over you. I mean, frankly, sometimes the kindest thing you can say is, you know, something direct, right? In a nice,
Mm.
loving, and kind way. I saw this. I was on a cruise ship and I was in the spa, and this woman was ranting at the woman behind the desk, and I don't know what happened. I was trying not to listen too much, but obviously she was not happy with her service. And I remember the woman behind the desk very kindly said, and firmly, I can appreciate that you're upset right now, and there are other people that are waiting who are having a spa experience. Do me a favor, would you lower your voice, number one, and let's go in the other room and talk about what you're concerned about so that I can help take care of you. Now that's kind. It's appropriate. Tells her to lower her voice, which she did. People just kind of go off sometimes, and I really think, especially with the just the intensity. And I think the pandemic might have taught us to be more kind.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. So it really is. It's about consideration. It's about thinking about other people's feelings. It's about being conscious that many people struggle and a lot of people put a brave face on it. If you're not struggling, well, you're in the blessed minority, right? In some way, in some aspect of your life. And in
Yes.
fact, it is the way of life as well, that when one problem gets solved, often another problem or challenge comes along to take its place, which has got nothing to do with business or work or money or any of those things. It is just the way that things happen. You've dealt with that. Now here's a bigger problem for you to
Yeah,
solve.
right.
Yeah.
Please,
So
let's see how
so
you do with this one, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. Oh, well, that's amazing. I love your mission in that respect, Jill.
Thank
So
you.
I know that a lot of my audience, they're going to be wanting to do things like get on podcasts, for example. That is a very, very common theme that I hear from my clients, for example, or the people that I speak to. It's like, I've got this message that I want to get out to the world, but I'm not quite ready to launch my own podcast. People often say that. Can I start with getting on other people's podcasts? Now, I don't know about you, but I find one of the things about having a podcast is that it's great because you can offer a podcast interview to people who also have a podcast. And there's kind of like an inner circle of podcasters. And we know that we understand the protocol and we've got the equipment and we know how to do it and all of those kind of things. But if you are somebody who, let's just say you're completely new to this world and you want to start getting perhaps in some of these high profile magazines or on some really interesting, relevant podcasts that your ideal clients might be listening to, what's the best place to start?
Um, I would start a few places. One is iTunes. Let's see what they're offering. Um,
Hmm.
Blog Talk Radio is a really good format, which has a
Hmm.
lot of hosts that are looking for guests, and they have a really great format. It's simple, it's fast, it's effective. There are podcast matching services and Facebook groups that are really good, one being podmatch.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those would be places I'd start, and then Google podcast matching services, because there are many, and great place to start. Makes it really easy, and you're immediately getting quick yeses.
Mm. That's interesting because some of my clients, I have people reach out to me quite a lot, so I never have to look hard at all for podcast guests. But as a podcaster myself, I want to keep a balance of guests, and I obviously always think about the value of my podcast overall, so that if people land on it, they're going to want to delve into it a little bit further and look at some of my other guests and maybe look at some of my solo episodes and actually just come back for more. That's obviously the part of the game.
Yes.
So I find that there are podcast agencies who've got some amazing guests, and I have had some amazing guests, and they do everything for the guest. They find the podcast, they put together the speaker sheet, they do all the chasing, all the everything, the guest liaison, they do a lot. But obviously they are expensive, and for people that are they're starting out, sometimes they can't really afford their services. So what you're saying is that if you can't, that there are still things like this Facebook group that you talked about, or maybe you could actually direct message some of the podcasters that you're very interested in collaborating with. Any other tips for people who are maybe just starting out?
Yes, and podmatch.com is a great resource too.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, I like the go to iTunes, put in your word, and see what podcasts show up, because
Okay.
yeah, it's gonna help, and direct you quickly.
Okay, well, that sounds great. So now what I'd like to ask you about, Jill, I hope you don't mind. I'm here to pick your brains on behalf of our listeners and viewers. So I'd like to ask you about trends and whether you're seeing changes in the marketplace that mean that people are using and consuming media differently these days.
Yeah, well, you know what? I got some good news for all of you. Here's the good news. Media has multiplied. What do I mean by that? I mean that, first of all, you're more in control of it. You can do your LinkedIn lives, your Facebook lives, your TikToks, all kinds of Instagram lives, all kinds of fun things where you control your message and you get to put out that, publicity minute in my case, right? Or whatever it is for each one of you. I love that. And I think that's a trend that's key. I also have seen the publicity multiplication factor, because when you're on media, particularly a TV or in a newspaper magazine, guess what? It's all online too. So you've doubled your exposure factor. That's powerful. I,
Mm,
I love the accessibility of people. I think actually media is more accessible than ever before.
mhm.
Why? Because there's much more of it. Yes, there is much more of it in terms of opportunity with the podcasting in particular, blogs, right? Ways that you can reach people that were not as easy before. So
Yeah.
that's been great.
Yeah, yeah, it's very, very true. I think that there are so many opportunities out there to get visible. But is it very important, do you think, to have guests on your podcast, or are you a fan of solo podcasts, for example? If you for people who are thinking of starting their own podcast, what kind of advice would you give people?
Well, I think it's great to have guests. Why? Because it's more interactive conversation. You're not just a talking head, which, there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe for like quick videos, 1 minute, 2 minute. I'd rather you just do that if you want to give tips and be that
Mhm.
expert, which is a great idea for visibility. But I think podcasts are more interesting as conversations.
Mm.
Honestly, the shorter the better these days. Max, I would say honestly about 30 minutes. 20 to 30 minutes is great. So in other words, you don't have to fill a lot of time on a podcast. Like, get in, have a good conversation, and come out, because people are listening while they're exercising, while they're driving, and I think if you deliver great value, they'll want to keep listening, and that is usually in a great conversation.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And of course, one of the things that I'm certainly very keen on, and I always talk to my clients about, is the power of content repurposing.
Yeah.
And that if you have created some form of thought leadership content, let's just say you have a particular perspective on maybe something that's happening in your industry or something that you care very passionately about or whatever. What I've started doing is repurposing it into multiple formats. So I might do a YouTube video, I might do a podcast for people who prefer to listen. And then I will also create an edition of my newsletter, and then I'll pick little bits within that. And then maybe I'll make it a chapter of a book. And I think that is the thing that is very exciting about media these days, is that I didn't do that for a long time. I was like a lot of people, just burning myself out, thinking that I had to create one piece of content for one platform. But once I kind of got the hang of it, and something like this live stream is an example of that, just looking at where it's going to, and there are 8 different destinations. So it could be 8 different people are watching it in different well, not 8 different people, but 8 different destinations
Yeah.
are seeing this broadcast, which is fantastic. And then later on, it's going to get repurposed and redistributed as an audiogram on YouTube and an audio podcast. So
Love that.
that is the thing. Yeah, that is the fun part, I think, of this all these platforms. I
Makes a
think
huge
once you actually start to master that, it's pretty good.
Yes, and it makes a huge difference. It really does. And I love the repurposing content, Jane. And none of you have to continue to reinvent the wheel for yourselves. You know, you take one, even like an interview, right? And then you get it on other places. You send it out to your clients. You use it as a promotional and publicity kind of generator, right? And think of it like a generator. And that's what I love about, as I like to say, publicity is the gift that keeps on giving, because you can keep reusing it.
Yeah, and I think I mean, I don't think I'm a master in this respect. I think personally I've got a way to go, but I certainly look to the masters, and I think, you know, you can go on and on and on just with one piece of content. And I think the really nice thing about that is that really it can go so far. As you said, you can use it on your email list. You can, you know, you can use it. You can SEO it. You can do so many different things. And if you obviously are working with a professional agency, they can help you essentially dominate multiple platforms just through that one piece of thought leadership, leaving you to get on with living living your life, and also running your business in the way that it should be run, rather than just burning yourself out constantly, just trying to kind of just, you know, run around like a headless chicken, and you know, do what people might do in the beginning, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I love that. And you know, here's the super other good news. When you're a podcast host, guess what you are? Media. You are
Yes.
media, and that gives you the opportunity to invite people on, to have another elevated respect, because you're a podcast host. It's like being an author, right? There's an elevation
Mm.
of your authority.
Exactly, exactly. Well, Jill, tell us about your boot camps as well. That's something that I did want to ask you about, because you actually help people increase their visibility online, don't you?
Absolutely. I have a very, I call it an interactive, very short day boot camp that is highly engaging with regard to get your publicity done. I have actual media there that you can pitch, that's listening, that's going to give you great, you know, feedback, frankly. And it's a get her done kind of publicity boot camp, and I do that usually once a quarter, and it's all on Zoom and highly interactive.
Well, that sounds absolutely amazing. And so please share that with me when you're hosting another one, and I'll make sure that it's distributed to my audience as well, Jill.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it has been such a fantastic conversation with you. I've really enjoyed talking to you. We've had some nice comments in the chat as well. So thank you so much for listening in if you were a guest here today. And Jill, it has been a complete pleasure. I'm really looking forward to getting my podcast with you out, and this podcast that we've just recorded. And it's been a pleasure. So thank you so much for joining us, and see you again soon.